Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show. And what a game that was. I don't know what it is about the St. Louis Blues that seems to bring out the best in the Winnipeg Jets, or maybe it's just that the Winnipeg Jets know how to play the St. Louis Blues. But if you go back to the last time they played the winner, Eric Comrie was in net, and they won that game. I thought that was one of the Jets' best games of the year. Well, fast forward to today, and I think the same thing all over again. I mean, I loved the engagement level in that game. And I thought that the Blues came out and played a really hard game for the first, second, sagged a little bit in the third. But I thought that game was, neck and neck through the first period, neck and neck through the second period. Late goal in the second puts the Jets' backs up against the wall. Love their response coming out in the third period. I thought they were clearly the better of the two teams. And here's the deal. In the second intermission, I was peeking around a little bit, and one of the things I knew, and I was digging into, some of the stats from the Blues game last night, because the Blues were playing the second game of back-to-back. They torched the Nashville Predators 7-4 last night. I believe they put up in the neighborhood of 35, 36 shots. They allowed in the neighborhood of 32. So it would have been a barn burner of a game. There would have been energy expended there. And what I thought coming into that third period was the Jets had to come out and take the fact that the St. Louis Blues had to be tired based on what they'd done in the back-to-backs. That was an opportunity that the Jets could not give away. So situationally, they had to be there at that time in the game, and they were. Now, they give up the late goal. It goes into overtime. That's fine, but they dominate in overtime. This is the deal. We keep talking about this blueprint, this ever elusive identity that, I think a lot of people aren't sure the Winnipeg Jets have had this year. But if you're looking for what this team could be, what they should be, I think that game that you just witnessed is exactly that. Good defensively. I thought Connor Hellebuck was great and did a good job keeping the team in the game at a lot of points throughout the game. The Blues were a little mistake prone. Clearly, two bad giveaways. One that leads to their second goal, and one that leads to the Jets' first goal, and one that leads to the Jets' third goal. But I love that the Jets, when they forced those turnovers or got those turnovers, they did something quickly with it right away. It was quick strike. It was the right attitude, engagement level, players, not shying away. Everything about that game, I thought, was exactly what the Winnipeg Jets hockey could and should look like. Again, if they need a template, a blueprint to follow down the stretch to try and make a push into the playoffs here, that's it. Look no further than that. You've got game tape to trot out time and time again. Now comes the hard part that we know. We need to see them to try and replicate it again and again going forward. That's what they haven't been able to do. That's the secret sauce that's been missing from this team. But if that's, and I don't want to say a starting point, because I think, they've won 3 of their last 4 games. Not a starting point, but definitely a place that you can carry forward and maybe make the push that you need to make this interesting down the stretch. That's enough for me from the early hit to the buffet. Now we got to bring in the guy who really knows how to feast at the buffet. Ken Wiebe's about to get here, everybody. Best entry music in the business. Let's get at it. Ken, my friend, you're almost home. You could probably taste that home cooking. It's been a while, but we're going to be seeing each other face to face soon. I'm looking forward to that time. But how's the road been treating you?
Oh, it's been great. Yep, lots of great meals. Great to see some great friends on the road trip, and for sure, looking forward to some home cooking for sure. Gotten a lot of steps in during the last week. I think almost 150,000 or 145,000 steps the last week, so that was good for the step count. Blue City Deli tomorrow. It was closed today, Sean. So we
Oh, you're going?
tried a new
Okay.
place called Salt and Smoke. It's by the ballpark. Some great St. Louis barbecue for sure. And yeah, no, looking forward to being home. It's been good to be out here. Good to see some friendly faces, and great to be in a barn. I mean, this is one of my favorite rinks to be in. You and I have spent a lot of time here, obviously, and it was a beautiful day today. 17 degrees here in St. Louis today. So yes, Sandy, I definitely got a little sun. Got a little sun. I've been gone since February 22nd. Looking forward to being back home. But yeah, I mean, this was a great barn, great atmosphere in here today, and a fun up-tempo game, and it was a physical game as well. And again, too, a great effort by the Jets, but also too, I mean, we'll get into it shortly, but you have to have some concern for Andrew Copp based on
No doubt.
what's happened to him lately. We don't know let's start there. We don't know what the update is. Obviously, we know he's coming off his fourth concussion, and based on Andrew tossing his helmet down the tunnel as he left the ice, I think he was concerned. Again, you're obviously going to be concerned. We will find out more on Tuesday morning, I guess, in terms of what his status will be. But again, the first and foremost, the concern is for Andrew Copp's well-being, and the rest of it will take care of itself.
This is a phenomenal point here by Bad Mood Blake. Says Jets more focused on the 2 points than retribution for Copp. That was, I think, a really good point to be made here, because we've seen in the past, and we've seen the Jets do it to teams where they take them off their game and get them chasing retribution. 2 points are exactly what mattered here. And again, good on the Jets for going down that.
What did the hit look like on the replay? Because we didn't really get a good replay here. I mean, to me, it appeared to be head contact, but I don't know if he got his shoulder to the chest and then followed through to the head. There was never a good look shown in here. I was wondering what you thought you saw in the broadcast.
I mean, the camera angles that you saw in the broadcast weren't the best.
Okay.
I think it's like, to me, it looks like a 50-50 thing, but judging by Andrew Copp's reaction, I do think it was, I mean, it was a high hit, no doubt. And I do think that there was some head contact. And again, I've said this before, the new NHL, we're not going back to the 2000s when it was like, keep your head up, kid. And if you didn't keep your head up, that was a cardinal sin that was punishable by someone taking your head off, and everyone was okay with it. We're not in that time anymore. It's up to players to try and protect each other. And in a case like that, I don't necessarily think Andrew Copp was protected by the other player. Clearly had his head looking in an opposite direction, but I don't know. I need to take more looks at it. Maybe I'm getting it wrong here, but right off the bat, I didn't like it.
He was in a vulnerable position. That's the issue.
Very vulnerable.
It's not the hit. I don't think it was a dirty hit by intent. But the dirty part is that Andrew Copp had no way of knowing there would be blindside contact. So to me, that is the bigger issue on the play itself.
Now, I want you to dig a little deeper into the game. We're going to hit the buffet here. But first, you and I have
big news
that we are super excited to talk about. And John, here, you know that Ken and I have been doing this. It's been over a year now. And you know that we've kind of, the benefit for us from Kenny and Renny has been spending time with everybody out there and just enjoying the chats with each other. But we are very, very excited to announce a partnership with our first sponsor, our first advertiser. The Johnston Group is jumping on board. And Ken, I absolutely love this move for us for a number of reasons. One, because Matty, who I've met a couple times now, Matt Johnston, I met him at a charity golf tournament, and he came up and started talking about Kenny and Renny and very specific things about it, and I realized he was a huge fan. He also knows you. I guess you guys golf together. The one thing I'm a little worried about is having such a good golfer in Matty on the show now. Like, you're not used to playing second fiddle here out on the golf course, and I think that's
yes, I am.
With Matty coming on board. But just so everyone knows what we're talking about here, the Johnston Group is a Winnipeg-owned and operated company that provides employee benefit solutions to companies from 1 employee to 10,000 or more. Over 30,000 Canadian businesses trust Johnston Group with their employee benefit needs through their various products, including the Chambers Plan, Maximum Benefit, and CINUP. Johnston Group is a platinum member of Canada's best managed companies and named one of Manitoba's top employers. Whether you are a sole proprietor of your business, part of a large organization, or an association with thousands of employees, Johnson Group has an employee benefit solution for you. And most importantly, these guys, as I said, they are super fans of the Kenny and Renny show. So clearly they have good taste. Welcome aboard to the Johnson Group. And Kenny, I'm so impressed by these guys. I've got a pitch for you. I think we should incorporate what we're doing here, this little business. And I'll do this. I'll become CEO. How's that sound? Now, forget the 50-50 partnership. I'm going to be the CEO of Kenny and Renny. You can, in the chat room, you can start referring to me as the CEO, but we're going to team up with Johnson and you're going to get those great benefits. That's what you get out of it. Okay. I get the title, but you get all the benefits. That's what's happening going forward. But just a word on the Johnson Group, Kenny, because you have known Maddie a lot longer than I have, but boy, it's great to be in business with great people.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, and it starts right at the top. David, the father, David Johnson, also a great human being, and Maddie and Willie, both awesome folks, and great family. They're a great business, and we're super happy to have everybody on board here. It's a tremendous situation for us, and it's awesome to have that kind of support. We've had great support from the chat room, and it's nice to have folks in our corner, that's for sure.
You bet. Okay, time now for you to kind of dig a little bit deeper in that game. I saw kind of a stalemate game up until that third period. I thought that the Blues played that third period a little bit sloppy. Made sense to me because of the fact that they were playing last night. The Jets were the more rested of the two teams. But I thought the Jets played that game exactly how they needed to situationally. In overtime, they took that game over. What did you see?
Yeah, it was impressive. I mean, I thought that obviously the turnover by Christian Vesalainen was very costly, and it certainly cost him some ice time in the third period when Evgeny Svechnikov went back into the rotation. But I thought the Jets played very well. And Sean, in a lot of ways, I think the Jets actually owned would be too strong, but I thought they actually carried the play for the majority of the second period. They built a pretty hefty lead in shots on goal, and then the Blues kind of had some pushback, which is what we're kind of used to seeing from them. So to me, it was an impressive showing all around. I mean, this was a game the Jets absolutely had to have, especially under the circumstances. And I mean, that's something that, again, if they want to stay involved in this race, they need to win games like that, especially when a team like the Blues is playing on back-to-back days. I mean, they had an emotional win yesterday. They didn't quite have as much in the tank, but you touched on it off the top, Sean. I mean, if the Jets bottled their efforts against the St. Louis Blues, they would not be below the playoff line, right? So, that's neither here nor there, but it's something we're going to be certainly watching for during these final 22 games of the season where they have very limited room for error. But what we know for sure is that in all four games against the Blues, the Jets played some of their best hockey of the entire season. And let's be honest here, were it not for the brilliant play of Jordan Binnington in the one game in Winnipeg, the Jets could have swept the season series for that matter.
Right.
But he was dynamite.
You know what? I thought he was a little rough today.
He was dynamite on the game in Winnipeg that they won.
For sure. But I mean, I definitely thought that was part of what happened there today. A couple of times he jumped out of the net. It seemed a little Connor Hellebuck-esque in that some of the decision making was a little bit. But even the Ehlers near goal towards, I think, is that right near the end of the third period, or is that the beginning of the overtime where it's a shot that just basically climbs up his shoulders, lands behind him and looks to be rolling in the net before his defenseman hops in there. He seemed off tonight, but again, this is something that the Jets weren't able to take care of it with Varlamov. But Varlamov hadn't won a game in how long before he played the Jets. The Jets were getting, not the goaltender that the Islanders have been riding recently. Same deal like this. Jordan Binnington, I know Jets fans and how they feel about him from what happened in the playoffs back in 2019. But he has not been their best goaltender this season. His numbers are a little bit atrocious. They put them up in the broadcast, but I think he did just enough to not lose the game for them tonight. But he was a little bit iffy. The Jets were making him think twice on a number of occasions.
Oh, no doubt about that. And sure, I mean, Ville Husso has taken over the job. So, I mean, were the Jets fortunate that they didn't see Husso today? For sure. And again, I have a theory here. I'm sure you'll agree, probably. But Connor Hellebuck and Jordan Binnington, they've got a little bit of a thing between the two of them. I don't think either one of them will necessarily speak openly about it, but I think there's a little bit of genuine dislike there. Again, I'm not saying it's necessarily personal, but Connor Hellebuyck just doesn't like to lose to anyone in particular. So I think he gets fired up. I mean, again, Connor Hellebuyck never lacks confidence, but I think he was probably fired up for this goaltending duel. Obviously, the folks that read my column on Saturday morning know that my personal view is I thought that the Jets could have easily gone with Eric Comrie today. We talked about after the show the other night, and I certainly stand by it. But I mean, as I also wrote in the column, Connor Hellebuyck could wake up at any point and kind of get back to being a dominant force, I guess. So obviously Dave Lowry showing confidence in his number one guy, and his number one guy got the job done. I mean, I didn't like the goal through the 5-hole by Tarasenko, but again, that's a terrible giveaway in the neutral zone by Christian Vesalainen. I know some folks thought that maybe Nikolai Ehlers didn't put him in a great spot, but in the last 30 seconds of the period, the puck was on Vesalainen's tape, and that puck has to get deep no matter what. So to me, that is clearly on Vesalainen. And, you know, Dave Lowry obviously agreed based on the ice time that was doled out during that period. So, yeah, I mean, but other than that, I mean, I thought that the Jets played pretty well. I know that folks have gone crazy about Evgeny Svechnikov a lot during the course of this season when he hasn't played as much. I know it was a bit of a ticky-tack call, but Sean, when a team gets a 5-on-3, officials are looking for an excuse and a reason to put the other team on the power play. So you cannot, even if it's on the pants and it's a soft call, you can't put yourself in a position to do that. And when you just came off an opportunity, when you got teed up on an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, you cannot take a 10-minute misconduct there. Now, once again, like I've said the entire season, great job by Svechnikov to recover after not playing for an entire period, barely playing in the first, and then I thought he actually was pretty good in the third on that line, where, Sean, you know this. You know I like him on that line. I've liked him on that line for a long time. I'd like to see him on that line a bit more. But, yeah, it's one of those situations where the Jets need to be better in certain situations. But, yeah, I mean, again, I understand the officiate. It's not, yes, it's a bad call, but it's still, you can't put yourself in a position to take that penalty. And then to get a 10, like, if you're itching and you're trying your best to get ice time, you know what a bad plan is? Spending 14 minutes in the box. Like, if you're looking for, did he deserve to be benched? Well, I mean, that's debatable. But here's the thing. If you're trying to keep your job, you can't afford a misstep. And the misstep was A, taking the penalty, and B, taking the 10. And again, Dave Lowry has been, we asked Dave Lowry about Nikolai Ehlers this morning. It was his 6th game back. He was ready for a bump up. The opportunity presented itself, and he played more. I mean, what a shocker. That's how it goes. So that's just one of the things that they need to take care of. In terms of what's going to happen, I guess it'll depend. I mean, Adam Brooks is the only available forward right now who is on the active roster. I mean, is it possible that the Jets could call up David Gustafsson if they had to put Andrew Copp on LT or on injured reserve? Maybe, but we got to be careful. They have to be careful in terms of the speculation, because the Jets don't have room for a call-up right now. So I don't think that even being on IR helps them. I think they would have to go to LTIR in order to work that out. And then obviously, like we said, the concern is for Andrew Copp's health first and foremost. But again, we know that Andrew Copp is a player that is under consideration for a trade. So, I mean, that will be something that we'll monitor leading into next Monday, obviously.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's dig a little bit more into Ehlers going onto that line. Here's the one thing that I thought was interesting about this. People are talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois as they should be. He's absolutely phenomenal again tonight. That compete level off the charts. But when he starts showing up on the scoreboard the way that he is, I love that. But this is the one thing that I'm really liking about Pierre-Luc Dubois is you're starting to see, hey, he and Svechnikov had a nice little thing going, right? Yep. They've got the chemistry from when they were in the juniors together, right? So we found that probably Evgeny Svechnikov's best showing at the NHL level in his entire career has been on a wing with Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? We can say that maybe he didn't get opportunities, or I don't know, maybe he would say that. I don't know that I can say that. I don't know a lot about his time in Detroit, but if you're talking about him and the opportunities he's been given, getting alongside Pierre-Luc Dubois has probably shown us the best possible version of Evgeny Svechnikov that has existed at the NHL level. Check. Go to Kyle Connor. We've talked about this before. Look at how Kyle Connor is playing this year. He has taken his game, which was an amazing game and has been for a long time, to an absolutely other level. He's ratcheted it up. And by the way, he's done it alongside Pierre-Luc Dubois. Well, what I saw tonight, are we seeing kind of the opening and the birth? Now, I know they've played together before, but it seemed to me that there was a connection tonight between Pierre-Luc Dubois and Nick Ehlers that, this scoring type, the end of the game there, Ehlers' goal. I'm taking a look at this and I'm thinking Pierre-Luc Dubois is starting to be that guy who finds the best version of whatever line mate he plays with. And people here are asking about Svechnikov and has he played his way off the line? I just don't know that you can keep, and I don't even say it for Kyle Connor. I don't know that you can keep Pierre-Luc Dubois and Nick Ehlers apart after seeing what they did with each other. How Ehlers was able to give that no-look pass in overtime and get it right to the exact spot where Pierre-Luc Dubois needed it to cash in. This is, to me, a connection that when you see something like that, it's like the light is shining too bright for you not to see how long that light can shine in that way. I have to see more of that going forward. Do you not agree?
Well, yeah, and I mean, we always talk about checking receipts. I mean, I'd like you to check the receipts from last season when I talked nonstop about how, we saw Paul Maurice wanted to see those guys together, and he did see them together. It just didn't click the same way that it has this year. Obviously, Nick Ehlers is coming back from an injury that was tough. I mean, running on adrenaline the first game. I think every game he's kind of gotten better. I mean, I know some folks were apoplectic about too little ice time in game 2, but it was because he was easing his way back in. So I think he's gotten better every single game that he's played. And I think that his speed dynamic just makes that line even more, dynamic, for lack of a better term. And man, I'm with you. I mean, I want to see that. It's nothing to do with Svechnikov. And yes, I get it. Some folks will say, no, well, you need to have the balance and you need to have this and that. Well, to me, this is very simple. If Andrew Copp is out of the lineup and Copp and Lowry aren't together, then you load up your top 6 again. Again, I personally think that Adam Brooks can come into the lineup, but that probably takes sending Christian Vesalainen down. I personally think the Jets would be best served by calling up David Gustafsson, playing him on the wing with Adam Lowry, and using that as their checking line. And you can have Svechnikov on the third line there. To me, I want to see more of Ehlers with Dubois and Connor. Now, again, that puts a lot of pressure on Pierre-Luc Dubois in terms of board battles and digging pucks out. But I do think Nikolai Ehlers is doing a better job on that front. And man, Kyle Connor, just another fantastic game for the Winnipeg Jets. Like, just an absolute force again. I mean, just another straight snipe on that goal. I mean, he's one off his career high, going to easily eclipse 40, and that, 50 is definitely still in the equation, right? Don't you think? I mean,
oh yeah.
Here's the other part. To me, Sean, the biggest thing right now for Kyle Connor is that he has his burst back, right? That's the other thing. There was a stretch there where his minutes were high that he didn't have the same explosiveness. I mean, again, you're coming up on the 3/4 point of the season, so it's natural that some guys would be banged up and not have as much in the tank. But man, that's goals in 4 consecutive games, and his speed has just been an absolute weapon for the Winnipeg Jets. And that line has got a lot of it's breakneck speed, basically, with 2 of those guys, and Pierre-Luc Dubois has the speed game and the power game. That line can be very dominant. And man, I mean, again, what I said to you the other day, I didn't like what I saw from the Scheifele line. I didn't think, yes, they had the goal from Wheeler, but I didn't think that they were as involved or were active in the game.
From Scheifele, you mean?
On Friday.
Oh, sorry, yeah, yes, okay.
So today, I like their game a lot better. I mean,
yeah,
there were still some moments, but I mean, I thought Stastny was skating. Again, the other day, back to back, it's tough for anyone. I thought he was moving well. I thought Wheeler was moving well. They were getting pucks to the net. And again, obviously, Mark Scheifele scores the big goal. Again, neither Scheifele or Wheeler thought it had anything to do with the hit, but I mean, they obviously responded after the play and cranked up their game, right? I mean, the Jets definitely found another gear. Yes, there were moments in the second where they were dominant, but They found another gear in the third, and then they delivered. I mean, the goal they gave up, one quick thing here. Let's dig into that quickly. Some folks calling it a flyby for Scheifele. Mark's responsibility is not the high slot guy, even in a 6-on-5. So Mark was late getting to Jordan Kyrou, but Mark's man is not Braden Shen. Almost under zero circumstance is the center responsible for the guy in the high slot. So I understand folks basically want to blame Mark for everything, and there are plenty of things that Mark can be blamed on this year, Sean. But that is not his man, and that is not a flyby. It's not a great job of getting in the passing lane, but it's not a flyby.
No, not at all. I did want to make a point going back to the Ehlers situation where he's going to land on that line. Mm-hmm. If Copp is out for a significant amount of time, I think that putting Ehlers alongside Lowry and whoever they decide to move in there, let's say it's Harkins or there's a bunch of different people it could be. I don't think that's enough for Nick Ehlers. Like, Nick Ehlers showed you tonight that he's got the capability to be a game breaker, right? And that's what they did. So he sets up that goal. He gets them back gets them started off in the game. You need Nick Ehlers engaged. You need him producing. The same thing as I said before about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Yeah, Pierre-Luc Dubois going out and trying and doing everything, that's great, but you need him to produce. And now that he's started producing, this team has been a lot more dangerous team. Well, it's the same thing. If you're going to get somewhere this year, and the Jets clearly look like they still are trying to get there, you need Nick Ehlers to produce. I don't know that you have the personnel right now to spread out the scoring from the top line down, unless you are going to try someone like I don't know if somehow you could move Stastny down and then put someone else up on that top line, but I don't think that Dave Lowry wants to mess with that at all. So at this stage right now, if Copp is out of the lineup, I don't think they can build a third line that is good enough to support what you want from Nick Ehlers and what he's capable of.
No, you need more for Nick Ehlers, not less. And I think the Jets were building up for Nick Ehlers. Sorry, folks, I'll tell a quick story here. My property management has not been great on this trip. The band on my Fitbit has been loose and popping out. I lost it actually on the way to the game in New Jersey. It fell out of my shirt sleeve, and then when I sat down on the train to New Jersey, it actually popped out onto the ground. So I was fortunate to find it once on this trip. Now, after coming up from doing the interviews in the room, it has fallen off again, and because my headphones are plugged into my laptop, I thought it might be laying around me, but I'm going to have to retrace my steps. So I was listening, but I apologize for if it looked like I was not giving you my full and undivided attention. But no, you're right.
I mean, you had enough. You were just going to walk out on the show for a second there. I was like, what did I say?
Nobody. No. We got our first sponsor. See you later. I'm retiring. I'm unlike Tom Brady. I'm retiring from the show, but don't worry, I'll be back soon. My retirement will be shorter than Tom Brady's, which I'm happy to see him back playing, but I digress. I'm with you. Jansen Harkins is a guy that you could play a little bit more, but I think they need to have Nikolai Ehlers in a prominent role. I mean, if they want to make... yes, we know that Paul Stastny has played a little bit with Adam Lowry. Could you consider doing something there? Maybe. But right now, that line is going to stay together, and they'll just have to sort out the third line and see what happens. Whether it's Harkins, Lowry, and Svechnikov, or whatever they do, that's just going to be the case right now. So you got to lean on your weaponry. And Sean, quick thing. We'll dive into the game here a little bit more, but this sounds ridiculous, and I know we always talk about the math being poor for the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets are within 4 points of the Vegas Golden Knights, and they'll play the Golden Knights twice in 8 days, starting on Tuesday night. So does it look great for the Jets? No, and we're not saying that. But what we are saying is that they've reeled in one of the teams that they're chasing, and they play them head-to-head. So this is easy. The Jets can't afford a split with the Vegas Golden Knights if they want to try to catch them or anybody else. They have to win both games against them, which is a tall task. But right now, the Golden Knights are struggling. So, the Jets are playing a little bit better. They've had some rocky moments, of course. But all of a sudden, they win the game on Tuesday night, if they could. Then all of a sudden, they're putting some pressure on. But it's interesting. I mean, we'll see what happens. And Sean, we know this other part about the Dallas Stars. We both love the way that they've been playing. They're without their best defenseman now, right?
Yeah.
And they got smoked by the Rangers yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's a little, we always talk about the points that are required, but the facts are, it doesn't matter what the points are if those teams try. All you need is one more point than those other teams, I guess. So
yeah, the baseline could be changing.
It's dropping.
Point. It very much could be changing. So our prediction, I was thinking in the third period there, boy, if the Jets didn't get back into that game and win that game, my count of allowable losses that they could be having, it would have been down to like 5.5, right? So all of a sudden, that's a really tall task not to lose that many games throughout the rest of the season. But you're right, and it's interesting here because it's not just the Ducks that the Jets have reeled in. Because I've been thinking about this. The Jets have reeled in the Ducks, but they also reeled in the Sharks. If we take a look at the push that they started here, so what do they need to do to get back into the playoffs? Well, they need to start hopping over teams. They've hopped over two of them, and I think there's just two teams now in between them and a playoff spot. Well, three teams because you got to bump one of those teams out. Now, Vancouver looks like they're losing tonight. Who knows if they'll lose? They still will be up on the Jets, but you close a little bit of the gap that Vancouver has been creating there. To your point, the Dallas Stars, they've lost 2 straight games. They're 3 points up on the Jets. They have 3 games in hand, so It's probably not as close as it looks. But there's opportunity there. There's a team that is without a stud defenseman that entirely controls the way that team plays. Without him, there's opportunity there. There is a ton of opportunity. The Vegas Golden Knights are in free fall. I mean, so if you're looking at the Jets, to your point, not only do they need to play really well, but they need some teams to fall apart. Well, the potential is suddenly there for Dallas. It's happening in front of our eyes to the Vegas Golden Knights. So there's opportunity for those kind of teams to fall and to drop it. Here's the deal. This is what it comes down to. I saw the Predators won tonight. Even in a game like this, the Blues get a point. They become very hard to catch. It doesn't necessarily matter what happens with Vegas. It's what happens with that Dallas team, because Vegas could fall entirely apart. Edmonton could fall entirely apart. The LA Kings could fall entirely apart. Vancouver could fall entirely apart. Those teams could not lose a game for the rest of the season. But if the Jets don't catch and reel in Dallas, they are not making the playoffs. It is not happening if they can't get past them. And to your point about, needing to take points off teams or, 4-point games, it was down the stretch, Ken. We talked about a month ago, the Jets were going to be playing Dallas, I think it was 3 times, and we were talking about they needed to come away with wins in those games. They lost all of those games. So
extra time games,
extra time games. But they all went to overtime this year. But the possibility is starting to show itself. They're starting to look like a path where before this there didn't look to be much of a path. Again, it's going to be hard to think that there's a path if Dallas comes out and wins its next 3 games, or wins those 3 games in hand. It's going to get tough. We're down to 22 games on the year, right? It's starting to get tight. There's very little room for error. But all that said, a path seems to be presenting itself that we maybe thought wasn't going to be there before.
And again, let's just dig into that. This is not a self-promotion hour, but do you think that changes the Jets' mentality going into the trade deadline? I mean, obviously, for folks who missed it, I wrote today that they should be looking to not use Copp and Stastny as self-rentals, even if they're within 4 points. I mean, do you think that changes the mentality that Kevin Cheveldayoff takes?
I don't think Kevin Cheveldayoff has at all been planning to sell. I don't think he has. And I said this on the Illegal Curve. The boys on the Illegal Curve had me out on Saturday. And again, one of the things I like about this show we do, Ken, is I think we're a little more free to talk about, people who work for the competition or whatever. But not this game, but that game against the New York Islanders. Darren Dreger was on during the intermissions. Darren Dreger had talked about, the idea of using guys like Stastny and Copp, to your point, as self-rentals or own rentals. I think we know this, Ken. There's not a sports journalist out there who has a more direct pipeline to Kevin Cheveldayoff than Dregs does. So my guess is if Dregs is saying that, he's saying it because it was spoken into his ear right from the horse's mouth. I think Kevin Cheveldayoff so badly does not want to sell at the trade deadline that I think he's just looking for this team to give him any excuse not to. And with Dallas, in their situation, after losing their defense, after the path that we just talked about somewhat opening up, and with some wins here and a good win here tonight, hey, Jets string a couple of these games like this together tonight. I think that's enough. I think that's enough for Kevin Cheveldayoff, and he doesn't move anything. I honestly think they would need to drop off drastically in the next couple of games in order for Kevin Cheveldayoff to think of selling. I don't necessarily think it makes the most sense. I've said this before. I think it's important to look at it like a business. If you are operating a business and someone said, you can try this, and if it works out, it's phenomenal, but there's only a 5% chance of it working out, how many business owners would go and do that? Not many, but there is value, I think Kevin Cheveldayoff believes, and he's done so in the past, in showing this group that he believes in them through his actions. And I feel like right now, the way things are, if the trade deadline was tomorrow, I think that he would be trying to give them a vote of confidence with their actions, not taking away from the team. Oh, hold on. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I was coughing away during the break while I was listening to your soliloquy. No, I agree. I agree that, and it's natural for him to think that way. But that's why I wrote. and I believe what I wrote. I think that you have to separate that side, and I totally get it. And like I said, I said it after the show the other day. Braden Shen was pissed off about it at the time, but you know what helped him get over it? Winning the Stanley Cup the next year. So, one quick thing. I know everyone's always watching this time of year. Teams that had scouts in attendance that are believed to be in the mix or in the potential mix of the services for Andrew Copp. Teams that were here included the Boston Bruins, the New York Rangers, the Florida Panthers. Like I said, on Friday, the Tampa Bay Lightning were there again. So we know these are the kind of teams that are interested. I brought up Jake DeBrusk a few times. We know he has been asked to be traded. I think Boston would be a place that, again, obviously Andrew Copp comes as a rental, but I think that Andrew Copp would consider signing in a place like Boston. I think Boston would be interested in a guy like Copp, knowing that there's some uncertainty with Patrice Bergeron in terms of him continuing his career or not, or what some of those things. I expect him to continue to play and probably sign, but he makes sense there. So to me, you'd be, the temptation wouldn't be, if you're Boston, you trade a rental for Jake DeBrusk, but if you think you could sign Andrew Copp for an amount that's similar to DeBrusk or slightly higher, maybe that opens their eyes to moving him. And to me, Jake DeBrusk, I think, would be a perfect fit for the Jets because he brings size and he can score. He's got 15 goals this year. He could play in your top six, but he's a perfect middle six guy. You can play him anywhere. I think that DeBrusk would be an excellent left winger with Mark Scheifele. You got a big guy that can move and finish. So again, Boston's not the only team. And Sean, this is one thing for me. I think, and again, I wrote again, there's obviously going to be a stealth team or two out there. I personally think that with the injury to Gabe Landeskog, I wonder if the Colorado Avalanche are a stealth team for Andrew Copp. I've said from the beginning, I think the Avalanche would be in on Paul Stastny or interested, but I think that Andrew Copp touches a lot of bases. Again, because of his versatility, he can play up right now with Landeskog out, but when Landeskog is in, you can play Copp on the second or the third line, and he can be incredibly effective with that team, and then certainly help the penalty kill, which is something we know in the postseason. Special teams are so important. So to me, those still to me are the two front runners. Sorry, not front runners. I think the Boston Bruins are the front runner. I think the Colorado Avalanche are the stealth team I would look out for. And as I mentioned before, I think teams like Tampa and Florida make a lot of sense. I think the Rangers would have interest also. And then we'll sort of see what happens. But again, there's a lot that's going to happen. But here's the thing. What we know for sure, Sean, is that the preemptive strike is coming. We don't know when it's coming, but this week some GM is going to pay the higher price to get the person that he wants. Because if you're a contender, you don't want to be looking at plan B and C. you want to be looking at plan A because you're trying to separate yourself from the pack, right? So what we know is that a move is coming. Do I think that move is going to involve the Winnipeg Jets? Probably not. I think the Jets roll to see how this week works, and then they will be not last minute shoppers, but I think that they're going to wait until the very end and try to see what they can get in terms of raising the price. But if some team blows them away, like I said right now, if the Boston Bruins are involving Jake DeBrusk in a move, I could see that happening. But again, we need to see what happens in terms of a health update first, and then we'll see where the Jets go from there. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, sorry, I just wanted to ask you a question before you're done there. Don't you think it would take more than just Andrew Copp if you were going to get Jake DeBrusk in return? I mean, wouldn't the Jets have to throw in a prospect, you think?
I mean, sure, even if
possible, Boston thought that they could sign him, I mean, to me, that's I don't see that as a straight up trade right off the bat. One is younger, and it feels to me like and
it might have to be a bigger deal. I mean, it might have to be a bigger deal. Maybe the Jets include a defenseman. I mean, would Brendan? I don't think the Jets move Brendan Dillon, but would the Boston Bruins be interested in someone like Brendan Dillon? Of course they would. I mean, we know the Jets found Brendan Dillon to be an upgrade over Derek Forbort. So do you think the Bruins would? I mean, of course they would.
Yeah.
I mean, Al, Jake DeBrusk has 15 goals. I mean, what do you mean he isn't that good? I mean, he's a middle six forward that has talent. I mean, he's a first round draft pick. I mean, he's a guy that would help the Jets. I don't think you can say he can't help the Jets. Does he play as solid defense as Andrew Copp? Of course not. But that's where David Gustafson's going to have to fill some of the defensive void. But Jake DeBrusk's a guy that has size and skill, and he would help the Jets. So to me, that would be a guy on the wish list. I mean, I talked about Owen Tippett in terms of Florida. I mean, we'll see what happens.
See, the one thing that I think that you are absolutely bang on with is I think if Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to make deals, he's going to make the kind of deals that you are talking about, deals that kick in and could maybe make the Jets a better team right now, but if not right now, next season for sure. And I've said this before, that may be a tough thing to do. But I think that's what Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to head out and try to do, because if he goes out and he decides to sell and he moves some guys along, and I've said this on a couple of shows here now, if he moves, typically what you get at the trade deadline is you earn back future by giving up present, right? If it's not your year, you're giving up on the present, then you are trading the present to someone else who needs the present, and they will bargain their future for that. Yeah. But future typically means draft picks or prospects that are, at least a year, if not 2 years away or whatever. But if that's the case, it's outside the window that exists with Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, and Connor Hellebuyck. Who knows what'll happen? And maybe all three will resign. I doubt that's happening. But, say what you want about that group of players, but Kevin Cheveldayoff has a massive, huge belief in those players.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the deal, right? And I do think that the one thing that I think is just such an absolute wild card when it comes to what's going to happen at the trade deadline is just, I think the message sending is important. It's why it's the question that Blake Wheeler accused me of headline hunting on, is what message is given with the team that's selling. I do think that message is important. I do think the last couple times they've made trades and picked up people, they did it when they picked up Cody Eakin at the trade deadline. They did it when they picked up Dylan DeMello. Rewarding his team is how Kevin Cheveldayoff talked about it. Showing them that or trying to give back to them for what he thought that they had given. So this is how he views it. He views that time of year as a time to shore up faith in his group. He tried to do it. I think, Ken, we both think that he took some big swings last year that fell through, but he was trying to do it. Kevin Cheveldayoff is at those times of the year trying to show faith in his team. So I do think that he thinks that is message sending season, trade deadline season, is an opportunity for him to reinforce and to send a message to his team that he believes in them. So to not do it, I think conversely sends the opposite message, and I don't think that's a message that he wants to send to his team.
No, that's fair, and we've said this from the beginning. We're arguing the same thing. It's not whether he should or not, or it's not whether he should have belief.
Yeah.
But if you're going to extend the window, what is the proper move to make?
Right.
right? I mean, that's what he has to decide. I mean, Kevin understands the ramifications. So would I understand if he'd want to stand pat and keep those guys? Of course, but this team also let him down to this point. So if you're trying to get all the other teams around them have gotten better, Sean, right? That's the point. Is if the team is not competing with those teams that have gotten better, then they have to augment their group or look for a different mix. So am I saying they should tear it all down? No. Like I wrote, I mean, with a couple of tweaks, this team could make itself better in the short term and over the longer term, which is what they're trying to be. You're trying to extend the competitive window. Do you think you can catch lightning in a bottle this year and win 4 rounds? I mean, of course he believes that. That's why he put the team together. But I don't know that that's a good bet, is what we're both saying the same thing. I don't know that that's a safe bet right now. Yeah. So again, we'll see what happens. Sorry, one quick thing. I know somebody had said, sorry, what is this thing about Stastny? Did he say something? I don't think someone said, oh, if Stastny gets traded, he'll retire. No, I don't think that for 1 second. Or what did he say during the intermission?
Who's that? Sorry, who's that?
Stastny. Somebody here said something.
Stastny was asked. It was actually one of those questions where Dennis asked him essentially if that first line power play got a little too pass happy, and he it was one of those things where he started answering it and wasn't sure how to answer it, and then he was realizing as he kept stalling on the answer that he was answering the question by not trying so hard to not answer.
It's not what he said, but what he didn't say was the answer.
Well, and then I think in the end he kind of got to the point where he was like, yeah, again, Stastny's pretty good with that. He, to your point, going back to when Mark Scheifele said that this team had no identity, and you and I thought very differently about how how he approached that. You didn't like it. I liked it at the time, and I always used to say, well, it's Paul Stastny is saying the same thing. He's just better at saying it, but that does matter. Paul Stastny is able to say truths that aren't so becoming for his team, but do so in a way that it doesn't come across as biting or giving up on his own team. He ended up turning it and answering it in that manner. But I think in the end, Dennis asked the question, and he kind of did affirm the question, not just with his words, but by the pauses that were built into him answering the question.
He didn't say anything about his future though, or anything, did he? After that, or?
Not that I picked up on. I'll say this. So you talked about this because I've been hearing the stuff about Colorado as well. And Adrian Dater, this was interesting. Adrian Dater, who we both know, journalist who works and has been covering the Colorado Avalanche for a long time. I saw him tweet something along the lines about Colorado not being happy with the way that Stastny left that organization. And I had thought, okay, but it's almost an entirely different organization. That was a long, long time ago that happened. But Dater can be pretty plugged in, so I don't know if there's a feeling that he burnt bridges in that town. They don't want him back. To me, it seems like it's an entirely different organization than that organization. But I just want your thoughts on that.
He took more money in free agency. I mean, they had a team that had like 5 or 6 centermen. I mean, I think that was smart business on Paul's part when he left the team, right? They had Nathan McKinnon, Ryan O'Reilly, Matt Duchene, and Paul Stastny were all there playing center. Everyone wanted to be at center. He went to a place where he got more money, and it was basically one of the hometowns that he grew up in, right? I mean, I don't know how maybe his agent played up the Avalanche against the Blues and raised the offer, got an extra year. I mean, who cares? That's a long time ago. I don't think it would prevent them at all. And as you mentioned, Joe Sakic wasn't involved, and Joe Sakic was one of Paul's biggest supporters as a rookie. So I think that Joe Sakic would be happy to have him back. And just one quick one, Crystal, we don't expect Cole Perfetti to be back anytime soon. We'll be asking for a further update on his status, but I don't think he's been skating, and I don't expect him to be back anytime soon. So I mean, we'll see what Dave Lowry says about that, but I don't see him being an option to jump into the lineup if Copp is out of the lineup for any stretch of time. So it's going to have to come from Brooks or Gustafsson or whatever the Jets decide.
I want you to give me your thoughts on playoff usage. One, how Dave Lowry started, who he started with, and using the 3 forwards. What was your take?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I've been asking for this for some time. Yes, I mean, we've talked about it here. I've written about it. I think it's easy for me to say because I also understand where Dave Lowry's coming from. Nikolai Ehlers missed a quarter of the season. And I think the Jets happened to go into extra time quite significantly during that stretch of time he was out. I mean, Blake Wheeler was out, Andrew Copp was out. I mean, it's hard to just say, hey, just roll with the forwards. I mean, we talked about Josh Morrissey's skating and edge work. I mean, we saw it again in overtime today. He was absolutely fantastic when he was out there with the puck. But do I like the fact they loaded up and went for it in overtime? Of course. That's what made them successful last year when they went 3 forwards and they basically played, as hard as they could. And they were aggressive. They didn't sit back and they didn't get themselves in trouble with poor puck management in the 3-on-3. I mean, you're going for broke in that situation, and it was impressive. And one quick thing for Rob Mahoney. I mean, Rob, it's not about changing. The Jets had goals from Ehlers when he was with Connor and Dubois, so they're not changing things. They already had changed them in order to get the success with those guys there. So it wasn't necessarily 3 balanced lines in those regards. Yes, they were balanced when Copp and Lowry were together, but I don't think it requires playing Ehlers on that line is not changing. That change has been made, and it's been a successful one. Even the other night on their lone goal, it was Ehlers finding Kyle Connor on the 2-on-0, which, speaking of shocking developments, Sean, when's the last time you saw a 2-on-0 in 2 consecutive games, let alone one in a season? I mean,
I know.
How bizarre was that play? I thought it was Justin Falk gets caught up. The other defenseman goes for the line change, and you're like, holy smokes. I mean, bizarre.
It seems strange. I mean, the pass that was a giveaway, like one. So let's talk about that. You got to give credit to Kyle Connor because it's the back pressure from Kyle Connor coming out of nowhere that leads to the turnover. The player kind of gives a no-look pass, and he probably should have looked because Kyle Connor was right in that spot. It's the recognition by Kyle Connor to look up ice as well, though. But to me, the real error there, and I don't understand how that happens. Even the guy changing at that time, I don't love, but I don't think it's the worst thing. But I think,
agreed.
Did you say it was Falk? He's way too up. I mean, Ken, you've played, I don't know how much, if you've played much in the way of defense. I played both forward and defense, but the one thing I can tell you is as a defenseman, when you have guys behind you, you feel it. And if you know you are your team's last man back, and there are guys behind you, it's a crazy feeling. And so to me, it just seemed like crazy, terrible recognition on the part of Falk. If it was Falk in that situation, he was way too far up ice, and there was no reason for him to be. But I was thinking to myself when they passed it up ice, and I saw. I couldn't believe it, Ken. I thought that maybe that there was a Blues player who'd blown a tire and had fallen and was way back, but that defenseman was nowhere close to where Ehlers, where those 2 Jets players were. So I was blown away by that. I couldn't believe that. I do want to dive into the overtime thing. This is one thing I think that is interesting, Ken, because we talked about this. I always go back to the moment when Dave Lowry took over this team, and you and I said on one of our first post-game shows, we had the conversation about one of the tasks he was going to have to take over was rewarding players based on how they were playing, and needed to stop taking this kind of legacy mindset that seemed to be around with Paul Maurice, where certain guys were going to get opportunities no matter what they did, and certain guys could come up and earn opportunities and earn more ice time, and that wasn't necessarily going to happen all the time. I think that maybe at times, I think I feel like on this show, when I've talked about Dave Lowry, I've said, he said he was going to do this, and maybe he hasn't done it as much as I thought that he was going to. I think what he's done over the last, since the switch over has been, he didn't just cram it down their throats instantly. He's brought it in slowly. And one of those things that we've seen here is that tonight's game in overtime, they start with Kyle Connor, Nick Ehlers, and Pierre-Luc Dubois going out there. I'm not even getting into the fact there was no defenseman out there, but every single time overtime starts, and it's not Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele out on the ice, that to me is a little bit of a statement. I think if Dave Lowry would have ripped the Band-Aid off right as soon as he took over the team and did that, it may have caused a little bit of problems, but he's done it subversively. I think he's done it in a way that these guys are going tonight. These are the guys who've been getting the most chances, so those are the guys I'm going to go with right now. I'd like to see him maybe do that with the secondary power play unit, because I do think that we're still at that place where the first unit takes far too much time sometimes, and again overpasses it and whatever. But I do think you have to give credit to Dave Lowry. He's done something that I don't think really would have happened or didn't happen often in the Paul Maurice era, where you didn't give Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele the first chance to go out and win the game for you. And he's done it in a way that it hasn't been shocking to us, even though it would have seemed shocking at one time for that decision to be made. And he's done it in a way where I don't think that Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler feel like they've had their right to go out and try and win the game taken away from them. I think that he's brought them around to the mindset of thinking, if you want to get that first crack in overtime, then you need to be the guys who are going all game. And right now, on certain nights, when Pierre-Luc Dubois is going, when Kyle Connor are going, those guys get the first crack at the overtime, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity. And again, that 3-on-3 and 3 forwards is made for those 3 players. I mean, I think, could you roll with Stastny, Wheeler, and Scheifele in overtime? Of course you can. You got a lot of smarts going on there to go along with the incredible speed of Scheifele. And I mean, Wheeler still gets around pretty well as well. But I mean, it's explosiveness with those 3 guys when you put them together. And I love the call. I mean, we shouldn't. I don't want to pivot too quickly, but we got to talk about the 5-on-3. I mean, that's just a poor. There too, they used the whole 2 minutes, the whole 62 seconds, didn't get a single shot on net. I mean, I understand you got to move the puck and look for a good play that could be a tap in, but you got to be getting at least a shot or 2 on goal. Honestly, the only time they had one chance for a cross-seam play, it was only there for a split second, and by the time Wheeler looked over to Kyle Connor, that hole was closed. So that's one area where the Jets need to do a better job. They haven't done a good enough job with that at all. It's unfortunate for them, because that was obviously a huge opportunity for them early on, but it didn't sink them either. But to me, again, that was too long on the 5-on-3. Again, you understand why he stayed out the whole time, but it was just a poor showing. And then you saw, we talked about body language. Blake Wheeler was very visibly frustrated as he went to the bench. They just need to do a better job of, I mean, I understand you want to have a perfect play at times, but they needed to get the shot lanes going. And again, you salute the St. Louis Blues because they're a good penalty-killing team, and they're willing to sell out and block shots, but Jets didn't do a very good job in that situation.
Well, and I think Kevin Sawyer has been doing a really good job of this on the broadcast as of late, is pointing out those moments when Mark Scheifele has an opportunity to take the puck hard to the net and decides to curl back away. He's starting to point it out every time right now, and I think he's doing a really good job of educating the audience on the choice that is made there, and saying, that you've lost an ability to apply pressure. And so I think it was him made a really good point about on that 5-on-3 power play. There's one point where Mark Scheifele gets the puck and he's wide open, and they just leave him all alone. And he's, it's a low angle, but he can go straight to the net. He can go straight at Jordan Binnington, and instead of doing that, he's standing there and he's trying to feed a pass through the 3 Blues players who aren't addressing him, who are giving him all the time in the world. And it's just a perfect example of this is what Kevin Sawyer had said, it was good pre-scouting on the part of the St. Louis Blues. It was a good job of them understanding who they were playing against and who had the puck. And who had the puck is Mark Scheifele, a guy that they knew and seemed to know in that moment would far rather try and make a pass and have it, one timer in the back of the net than to just grind it to the front of the net. Now, I will give Mark Scheifele credit for this, and I thought this, like you, I thought they had a better game tonight. But the goal that he scores is the kind of goal we need to see that line scoring more often. Getting the puck to the front of the net, jamming away at it, just keeping going and going and going. And that was a tenacious goal that line scored. It was an important goal in the game that they scored. It had to be. I know that I'm talking about Scheifele not making the right move, and it didn't work out earlier on the 5-on-3, but to me, it's a lesson that was learned in that game, and they proved it by going and showing that they recognized they needed to get the puck and grind it down on net. Ken, before we go, okay. Do your thing.
Just one quick one on that goal. I mean, we've talked about the struggles of Logan Stanley, but what a shift he had. He had a massive hit on Jordan Kyrou. He had the big shot on net on that goal by Scheifele, and then he got the puck to the net on the rebound, and it went over, and I think it hit Wheeler and goes to Scheifele. So, again, Logan has been having a tough time at times. There's no doubt about that. His confidence seems a bit shaken, but today, even though he's been, benched, I think he was benched on Friday, at least certainly they went down to 5D. Today they were down to 5D for certain stretches, but he came up with a big shift at an important time. And I agree. Yeah. Get the song up. Let's go. Hit the music.
Yeah, let's do that. We're gonna do a last minute. This is like the overtime version of a Sean's Headband show. It was called for, so it's got to happen. Here's Sean's Headband.
Yeah.
And Kenny, I see that there's someone there chatting with you. It's time for us to go anyways. Like I said, this was a last-minute Hail Mary version of Sean's Headband. That's the way it's going to go. We're going to leave the show with this. Before we do go, just want to bring up, if you are interested in any Kenny and Renny merchandise, we've worked hard on getting this stuff out to everybody. So if you need T-shirts, if you need water bottles, cups, you know where to go. www.shopsportsnet.store. And once again, we just want to say we are so happy to have our first advertising partner in the Johnston Group. So great to have them on board. Can't wait to deal with them going forward. And I can't wait to go out and have you guys slap me around on the golf course at some point this summer. That's going to be a ton of fun, Ken. And other than that, and we've been talking about it. We talked about it a little bit last year. We got to get some kind of Kenny and Renny event out on the golf course that the people in the chat room could come and get out with us. So let's start thinking about that, working towards that. We love our chat room who always bring it, as they did tonight. Thank you so much for doing that. If you haven't subscribed to our page yet, make sure you go to YouTube and do that. Leave us a like on our videos there while you're there. And I'm just going to keep reiterating this throughout the rest of the week. Our long form show with Sheldon Kennedy this week was phenomenal. I'm fiercely proud of it. If you have some time, that is something we really do think you should go check out. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate that. We really, really appreciate you, as we always do. We will see you after the next game.